All right. Because I just thought of some more cars that are, you know, I guess some cars that no one really knows about, and I think some of them are pretty strong. One of them, regardless of how ugly you think the car is, or good looking, it's up to you. I think those the SRT6 Crossfires, like those are interestingly, from what I've seen at least, quick cars, right? Now, granted, that's basically a Mercedes. That's not an American car. Like it does not have an American powertrain. Right? It's got a Mercedes V6 and a Mercedes 5-speed automatic on the SRT6 specific. So I was like, there's not much American about it. But I haven't heard anything bad or seen anything online bad about that car. Like, I mean, yeah, you might have a few hiccups here and there, which, obviously that'll happen to almost every car at least one point in its life. But that thing it's a supercharged V6, right? And that car I would think it was rated for 320 horsepower. Now, I don't know if it's true. I think they said somewhere that car was underpowered or underrated by Chrysler. I would say that one, I don't know if it's 100% true, but I know that's happened to a couple cars, right? Where it was underrated. Like there's some other cars obviously today, but I wouldn't consider those ones at the moment a bargain car, right? Bargain for who they're competing against, sure. Bargain for like what most people can afford, probably not, right? Like some quick examples. A quick example of like a car that has like a underrated by manufacturer on their power. One is C8, right? The C8 Corvettes actually have more power than what is advertised, even on the base model. That one has more. The old New Edge Mustangs, those ones, I think I think it might have been the Terminator. I think. I know initially they were overrated, and then they became underrated at a certain time. I'm like, okay, this is an interesting kind of thing with this Mustang, but another one, the Chrysler 300 or 300. Well, no, those are never underrated. Yeah, SRT6s. I'm like, because those things are. So it's a supercharged V6, right? Which is, first of all, that's a rare occasion. To me, I kind of find that kind of cool. I just like seeing supercharged cars. I wish we did that more. But like those things were, I think, a little over three. They were basically Corvettes on weight, right? Like they were just a little bit over 3,000 pounds. And they're not very big cars. Like those cars are quite tiny. And I don't know. I kind of always seem to find a lot of the Dodge SRT vehicles pretty cool. At least before the 392s came out. Not that I don't like the 392s. I like those engines, right? But I don't know. I just find like pre-MDS or the engines without them. Like I think the 6.1 Hemis that were made from 2006 to 2010. That little 4-year span, that 6.1 liter. I don't think I had any point ever had MDS. That's just a pure 6.1. Which I guess I understand that you can do all these delete kits and all that, but I'm like, for some people, they just don't want to deal with that hassle. You know, they just want to go straight into it off the rip, no issues from that point, right? If anything goes wrong at that point, it is what it is. But the 6.1 liters, whoa, what is that? The 6.1s, I've always liked that little Crossfire. I think from a performance standpoint, I think is quite quick, right? I had the 5-speed off the Mercedes, which from anything I've seen and just looked up, because I don't know, I'm interested in a lot of automatic transmissions more than I am manuals, just to see what these manufacturers are able to do, right? I'm like, I just get more interested. It's more intriguing to me. From Mercedes transmissions, just, or even German, like their automatics seem to be able to handle more heat than our transmissions here. And that's when it comes to like operating temp. I'm like for them is much higher than ours. Like, I think from anything I've seen, it might be wrong on the ZF's portions, but at least for Fords and GM transmissions, I'm like, it always seems to be like 220, like 200 to 220 seems to be pretty much like you're pushing the limit. Anything beyond that, you start, varnishing clutches or just burning anything up in that auto, like, and then you might start ballooning the torque converter, whatever the case is. But then I see German cars and like anything I read or seen, I'm like, they seem to be able to be fine at like the 240 mark, and they're okay. I'm like, 240 on a trans here is a death sentence for a long period. But no. And those things, for being a little 5-speed, those things were quite strong, Now, I don't think it was the exact same transmissions, but I'm like, the old SRT8 6.1s, those ones, if you did not get the manuals, which usually had the T56, because that's just what Dodge like to use, which is fine. That's a stout transmission. That's pretty much been the go-to as one of the best bang for buck manuals from the automatic world. So they threw the SRT8, like Challenger, Charger, Chrysler, whatever the case is. They gave all those, obviously, Hemis, which are American engines, but the transmissions were still 5 speeds. Well, they're all the 5 speeds that Mercedes had. Which, anything I've looked at for that Mercedes transmission, the only thing they said that one is sensitive to is just more service, right? You just gotta change the fluid on that transmission more often. Probably change it every 25 to 30. Actually, I'm like, okay, I feel like that would be normal for most transmissions, where you just replace transmission fluid around that point anyway. But they said that, I guess that one is quite sensitive, so that one you really gotta like push it down on it. I'm like, okay. But like, if you do that, I think that those cars can survive like a long time, right? And for that transmission being thrown into that car, I'm like, that is a pretty strong trans. Because they use that thing for years, and then I'm like, it has like manual mode and everything, like is it slow? A little bit, it's a 5-speed. It's not going to shift lightning quick like the way the newer transmissions do, but it's good enough. It's good enough for you to have fun. Obviously, the only thing I wish the Challengers and Chargers and all that cars had, even the Grand Cherokees with the SRT8s, only thing I wish is that they weren't so heavy. And if they are, right, which they are that heavy, I wish they would have had an option, at least, for an all-wheel drive variant, right? Like the 5.7s, like the old Chryslers, those had, like even the police cars, the 5.7s, Chargers, and Challengers, those had all-wheel drive variants, like straight up all-wheel drive system. I'm like, why can't we do that, right? I think with these cars weighing this much, like it's just a constant 4,000 pound, 4,000 over and over again. They don't really try to line up the car, even the new ones, right? Now, does it take away a little bit of, I guess, the old school muscle car feel? Sure, right? It's not a rear-wheel drive muscle car anymore. But I'm like, I see people buying all these cars, at least the big ones, and then they complain because they can't, it just doesn't want to take off. It just doesn't grip. I'm like, dude, I don't know. But some people can do it, some people can't. It's the way it is. I still think that those cars should be all-wheel drive, like, or at least deserve an option for it. Because I think they would have thrived in that, right? Like the only cars that I think would have been okay without them are obviously the light cars, like the Viper or that Crossfire or whatever other car. I'm like, these cars don't, like these cars, those two cars don't weigh, 2 tons. They just don't. So I'm like, so I just like the fun part of the fact that the cheapest supercharged V6 that Dodge has to offer from factory is that Crossfire at this point. Like, I've seen some on sale, and I'm like, even a low mileage one. I saw one yesterday, for $20K, right? Some people might think that's expensive, but for $20K, that thing had like, I think it was like 30,000 miles or something like that. I'm like, damn, like that's not a lot, right? Now, there's pros and cons to buying low mileage cars because of seals and whatnot. So, that's why I'm like, I try to shoot for cars that have at least a used one, right? Especially if it's like relatively old, somewhere between 25 and 75,000 miles. If you really want at least a decent one where it's not crazy. Now, if you don't care about mileage and you like rebuilding stuff right away, and that's just kind of your thing, full send, bud. But for like an okay used car, I would say somewhere there would be pretty decent. Obviously, that doesn't, just because it's within that range doesn't mean it's actually like great. Something could have gone wrong in that span, but it's a risk. I think, yeah, for Dodge, Chrysler Crossfires, I think are quite interesting cars. For Chevy, I think obviously for the price at this point, yeah, it's got to be a C6, I think, right? But you're matching the power of modern day powerhouses with that car. Like C5s and whatnot, C5s and like 4th gen Camaros and all that, which 4th gen Camaros are quick. Right? Like they just are. And that and the WS6, the Firebirds from Pontiac, that and the S, if you have that, with that WS6 package and the SS, those have some slight tweaks from what I've read. So they have the LS6 intake manifold off the C5s, C5 Z06s. If you get the automatics of those, the one thing that they did carry over from the C5, which is nice, is the Corvette servo, right? Those 4L60s, I see a lot of people do these Corvette servo swaps. The SS and the WS6, I believe, have Corvette servos. I think if you get the manual, it's the same manual every single T56 gets the same gears. Yeah, it's the same, whatever the case is, right? For the 460s, besides it having a Corvette servo, it does have a better final drive. Now, I get it. It does way more than the C5, but that final drive does matter though. Like your the differential ratio. The C5s, at least with the automatics, had either I think it was a 273. I think was the standard one for the 4L60s, and then a 315, because the manuals, I think all of them had a 342 final drive. So if you find yourself and you buy an automatic, and that's just what you want because you like the car, which hey, it is what it is. Car is a car. If you got that 4L60 and you have those additions, just know your differential ratio is a lot nicer than what the C5's got. I think it makes the car feel a little bit more, I guess, alive, type thing, because the C5s received two. It had a 273 and a 315, or a 3.15. The SS or the WS6 received a 3.23 on their final drive. Gear ratios on the 4L60 never changed, right? They shift pretty much whenever they shift. The only thing that ever changed with any of the cars with these 4L60s is the differential ratio, which those two cars still didn't weigh a crazy amount, right? They weighed around 3,400 pounds. Like, that's still pretty good. And I'm not gonna say they were handling monsters. They weren't, not exactly what they were. They're not built. I don't believe they were really built to beat these cars. No, in a drag race, I think those cars are insane. When that whole LS1 platform is an interesting side, and they underrated those too. Actually, say if you guys didn't know, I'd say they rated those cars for 325 horsepower. I'm like, yeah, right, dude. And then people were finding out, no, they were rated well below their means. They actually have the same amount of power as the Corvettes, like 350. Some of them 360, because some of them they were making to the wheel like 320 wheel horsepower. I'm like, yeah, that's not right. If you are rated for 325 horsepower and you're making 320 wheel, I'm like, you're smoking, dude. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, that's not correct. So but I think those cars are underrated too. Now they're a little bit harder to find, and some people don't like how they look. It is what it is for that one. Let's see, can I park anywhere? Oh, okay. But yeah, I think those cars were underrated too. I think if you're gonna go for some cars, I would think no one really talks about or cares about, I think the Crossfire SRT6 is one of them. The SS 4th gens or the WS6 4th gens, or yeah, that same gen, the F bodies, whatever the case. Those ones are pretty stout too. Just because I think, and look at that, all of them were rated at 320 horsepower, right? Like 320 to 325, all three of them. So I'm like, come on, right? But I think if you look at those, that'd be nice. Now, are they hard to find? A little bit, right? But I think they're hard to find for a reason. I think there's a good reason for them being like that. So just because like either they're like fully built right now, or they just refuse to break. Right, the cars just work. I'm like, why would you? And if those people who bought those three, I'm like, normally they're probably, you know, people who are, I guess, slight enthusiasts or just like that kind of car. So I'm like, most people won't really sell those unless they just really don't want it anymore or they can't afford it, type thing. But they're fine, you know. That's what I like about them. That's why sometimes I try to look at some cars that I never thought I would even think about. There's definitely other cars I want to do, but I'll probably save that for some other videos. So, but I'm about to head out to work. You all have a great day. I'm out.